All right, beautiful people, welcome back to another amazing and impactful episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best life through the lens of holistic health. I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and as usual, I have the determined, the resilient, the fist in the air, the laughing queen herself. Please introduce yourself.
What up, party people? Party people,
Oh, she got
party
a whole
people.
song
Hey,
now.
hey, party people, party people, party people. All right. My name
We
is.
can end the episode now. We can just.
Rude. My name is Sinclair, aka
The
Health
Nerd.
Nerd, and yes, here on another Sunday afternoon. It is afternoon, right?
It's a time.
It is some time.
Yes,
Quarantine is just a black hole at this point.
indeed. But, so, thank you for coming back. This is episode 19.
Hey.
We are almost to episode 20. You know, rocking with it. Shout out to all y'all in here. We appreciate it. But, Queen, I know you wanted to just kind of get some nice free-flowing thoughts. So, go ahead. What you want to talk about, Queen? How are you doing, Queen?
Doing pretty good. I feel like we had the pleasure of going to sister's wedding yesterday.
Yes, we did. Shout out.
A beautiful
shout out.
union. It was really nice, but it did start quite a bit later than advertised.
You know.
Which all I gotta say is thank goodness that we did not get there when they said to get there.
Right.
Because then we would have been sitting for like 2 hours.
Yeah, so I mean, my sister, shout out to Anissa and Iron. Congratulations to your new beautiful kingdom and union.
Yes.
So she knows that I'm a very punctual person. So I'm a very punctual person. So, you know, she's not, for the folks who couldn't, see her on the podcast. But she was like, oh, the wedding's going to start at 2:30. And I was like, all right, cool. So we'll be there at 2:30. And she was like, really quickly, actually, on second thought, Devon, show up at 3. We're telling most folks 2:30, but I know you're punctual. So you show up at 3. And I was like, all right, bet. Show up at 3. So we show up at 2:50.
Yep.
And I was
He was
anxious.
already stressing.
Yeah, I was already stressed.
How you know the difference between us? We get in the car and it says it's going to take 50 minutes. And it was like, I was like, it says we're going to get there at 2:50. And I knew not to say anything out loud, but in my head, I went, perfect. He goes, shit.
Yeah, so specific, it said 2:53.
It did.
And I was like, oh man, that's cutting it really close.
And I'm like, perfect.
Oh my goodness. I'm a very punctual person, especially for weddings. Like, I don't want to be that person that shows up late. I'm knocking at the door while the bride's walking down the aisle or whatever. So I just think worst case scenario in my head.
And I feel like on this instance, we're like switched from what we would normally be. I feel like I'm normally a worst case scenario type of person. But when it comes to things like this, I'm just like, I expect everybody to be running late because I just know most people run late. So, and I know I shouldn't, but I operate under the assumption that people run late. So when they don't, that's unfortunate for me. But most of the time they do, and it ends up in our favor. But yes, we have showed up to other people's events early, and they weren't there yet.
We show up on time.
Okay, but if it's a party, like, it was a graduation party that started at 6, and we show up at 5:45. Who shows up to a party early? No, you don't show up to a party early. They weren't even there.
What are the rules, Sinclair? Sinclair, what are the rules?
I'm trying to tell you. For a party, you do not show up early. You show up fashionably late. That depends on how long the event is. But usually, if you ask me, it is 30 to 45 minutes after the start time.
Yeah, those are the rules?
Those are my rules.
Those are your rules?
Those are my rules.
Okay, yes. I agree for when we host things, those are the rules that we go by because she's the queen, so we go by her rules. Now, if I'm hosting an event, if Devon sends you an invitation and that boy says start at 5 o'clock, end at 7 o'clock, That's what we're doing. We're starting at 5.
That means at 4:59, he's like, all right.
I'm prepared.
Everybody.
Right. I am prepared. Those are my rules. Go ahead, Queen. Do your thing.
That's really all I said.
Good.
That's all I had to say. You know, I was just wondering. Well, we were talking earlier about like, okay, if you want to start an event, what time do you tell people to show up?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start it at 6,
okay.
What time do you tell people to show up?
Me?
I know not to ask you because the answer is 6. Me, I would say 5. But no, I want to do something.
A whole hour?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yep. If I knew that I wanted to give a presentation or do something at 6, or like even for like a surprise party, like if I wanted to throw you a surprise party, best believe I would be like at 6. I would have people show up at 5.
So then, what if people actually show up at 5?
Great, you're early.
Y'all let us know if y'all. What are the rules for you? If you want your event to start at 6 o'clock, what time do you tell folks to show up at your house or at the party? Do you tell them 5 o'clock? Do you tell them 3 o'clock because maybe they're Nigerian and they?
I would say that's the demographic of people usually probably says something too.
Oh my gosh! Shout out to my Nigerians in here. Much love.
Nigerian time is the worst.
You know, Nigerian time and Filipino time.
Those are the worst. Those are absolutely the worst.
Woo! Good times. All right, can we get into this podcast?
I guess good? So.
If you want to start your podcast at 3 o'clock, what time should you actually begin talking? So today's podcast episode, we want to talk about your relationship with food.
Yep.
Okay, so we all might use food for different things. So we're just going to kind of go through our personal ways on how we use food. But then also, you know, the queen, being the health nerd herself, she's also to give y'all some wisdom and some nuggets on how to use food the best.
How to build a healthy relationship with food.
Yes, so let's get into the episode. Alright, and we're back, and Queen, you know, we got the new mic set up, so please make sure you keep talking loud, that way the microphone can pick up all your amazing and beautiful frequencies. No, not those frequencies, wrong ones.
That was great.
What was it? So, can you lead us off? Relationship with food.
Yeah, so I feel like when you say food, we all have the same thing with different things that come to mind. Meaning that maybe you're thinking about whatever last meal you had. But we all have a different relationship with food. And because food is something that you consume, unless you're fasting, on a daily basis, you do need food. Not as often as you think, but right. You do need food. It is important to have a healthy relationship with food, because food can be your savior. It can cure, depending on what you believe, FDA don't come for me, but it can help prevent, it can help you feel better. It can help build your health, but it can also build your demise, right? It can also be, if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention to what you're putting into your body. They mentioned this on the Secrets to Success podcast that I was listening to this week. Said if you're not intentional about like your health, and if you're not intentional about what you're putting into your body, you could accidentally end up sick. And so, right, you want to be intentional with it. So I think that that's really just the overall point that I want to drive with this podcast. But as he mentioned, right, we all have different ways that we use food and utilize food. So there's food for fuel, right? Taking a step back, the first step is kind of analyzing what is your relationship with food, right? Your current relationship with food.
So let's pause there, Sinclair.
Yeah.
You know, because, we're married, but apparently you've been on the side with food. And I wasn't aware that we all had this established relationship with food. So talk to me about your relationship with food.
My relationship with food is something that I'm trying to improve upon.
Oh, so you're trying to build and make a stronger relationship with said food.
I am.
All right, I can accept that.
Okay. So I feel like my relationship with food is complex. Ooh. Very complex. Because I have always loved food. Always. Since birth. Always loved food. And like growing up, I danced very heavily, danced for multiple hours every single day. Usually 6 days a week, I was at the dance studio for at least 2 hours. So I was burning a lot of calories. My metabolism was not what it is now. So eating like food was not really wasn't really something that I thought about. It was just, I ate what I wanted. I didn't really gain a whole lot of weight until older. So I feel like I'd always had family members tell me like, oh, it's a good thing you dance. You know, it's a good thing you're active, because if you weren't, there would be another story. So I feel like I never really paid that much attention to what I was putting into my body until probably like teenagers years is when I started to be mindful. It wasn't until probably college that I actually started taking steps towards improving that relationship.
So would you say that prior to high school, your relationship with food was based on pleasure? I'm going to eat food that makes me feel good and that tastes delicious.
Yes, and it more so makes me like my soul feel good, not necessarily my body. Because later on is when I started to pay attention to how it made my body feel. And that's when I was like, okay, let me make some changes. But it was just what I was based on taste. I loved the taste of food, so I would just let me get what's going to taste good and make me temporarily happy.
Gotcha.
That's what it was about. But I feel like what I'm more currently trying to realize is that I do have an emotional connection to food, as everybody does, but one that's not always healthy. So I go to food for when I'm happy, but I also notice that I tend to go to food when I'm not happy, when I'm sad, or when I'm anxious, or sometimes even bored. And so
that bored one's dangerous.
It is. I'm just like, man, like, especially during quarantine, it's right. Dangerous, because you got the kitchen, you got all of your, like, if you're in a office at work, you normally may not have as many things available, but in your home, when you have the fridge and your own cabinet full of snacks, they're available to you 24/7. It's dangerous.
And you got your phone full of apps.
Yeah.
You got the Postmates, the Uber Eats, the Potluck Community. Hey, shout out. Hey. You got all these different things in your phone where you can just have food delivered. Right. So it's like, if I'm bored, what can I order real quick?
Right.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. Literally whatever you want. Like,
literally.
It's bad. But yeah, I feel like that's something that I'm just becoming more mindful of right now is, okay, especially right now during these very current times of COVID, of racial tensions, I feel like anxiety levels are high.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to be mindful of making sure that that's not a reason that I go turn to food, because that's not necessarily solving anything, right? It's a very temporary, like, oh, okay, man, that tasted good. But did that solve my anxiety? Like, no, it didn't. I'm still having those feelings. I need to get down to the root of the problem. So I feel like I've been very intentional lately on, like, okay, I want to go grab some, I don't really eat chips that often, but I'm going to go grab some chips. Why am I going to grab these chips? Am I hungry? I am kind of hungry. Why am I choosing chips? Because that's a greasy, salty food that I'm craving right now, but I know that that's not the best thing for me, so let me grab some raw almonds instead. Gotcha. So I've been very intentional about, like, okay, if you're hungry, then grab something that's good for you, grab something that's a quick little, almonds are a good little high-protein snack to just satiate you real quick. So I feel like I was going to get to this later in the podcast, but that's, I think, one tip that I would give you if you're trying to improve your relationship with food. Choose what I call a clutch snack. A clutch snack. And that's just something I came up with. I don't know if that's a thing, but I come up with that myself.
You heard it here first, folks.
Create a clutch snack. A healthy snack that you can grab when you're trying to detour from something unhealthy, if that makes sense. So, right? Mine is raw almonds, because it's something that I like. I do like raw almonds. They're healthy and they satiate me quickly. I don't have to eat a whole bunch of them to feel like, okay, that was what I needed. So for me, it's like I grab a handful of raw almonds whenever I'm trying to deter from grabbing the cupcakes at work for whoever's birthday, or there's a popcorn machine, which is my demise. I love popcorn, buttered popcorn. So rather instead of that, I have a little thing of raw almonds on my desk. I'll grab a handful of those, and then I'll be like, all right, good, you satiated. There's no need to go and grab whatever else you were about to grab. Usually, for me, it's either something sweet or salty. But yeah, so figure out what your clutch snack is going to be. Make it healthy. Don't let it be a bag of chips. That's not a clutch snack. That's a treat. Make it be a piece of fruit or vegetables, some apples and peanut butter, or like celery and peanut butter, nuts. Nuts are a great snack. Try to stay away from like refined carbs in general. But like nuts are a great one if you can eat nuts, and if you like to eat nuts, grab a nut. Some trail mix, something like that. Fruits and veggies. Those are good clutch snacks.
So my go-to snack used to be, and sometimes I used to eat these for lunch, to be honest with you, when days were hard. Natural Valley granola bars. No? Oh, you give me the look. Those aren't popping. All right. Well, I don't eat them anymore, but they used to be my clutch snack, y'all.
And I guess my thing is the reason why I'm saying like nuts or fruits and vegetables is because they're unprocessed. So the reason we talked about the obesity epidemic a couple podcasts ago, but in Obesity Code book that I'm reading, it talks about refined carbs and snacks that have a large carb content being the reason why obesity is such an epidemic right now. Is because those are the things that we go to in between meals. Is the even more, the really high processed. So I don't know if that specific like bars is something, so is a good snack, like, but oats in general, oats and like whole grains are the good type of carbs you do want to consume. But personally, if you're talking about a snack, it should be something that is low on the glycemic index, which we've talked about before. But that basically means that when you eat it, it doesn't affect your blood sugars and your insulin levels as much. So nuts, fruits, and vegetables, those are all things that apparently nuts have a glycemic index of 0, which is why I say they're the perfect snack. Something you can eat throughout the day and your blood sugar and your insulin levels are not changing. So that's why it's my clutch snack. That's why I do recommend it being a clutch snack for those who can eat them. Obviously, if you have an allergy, do not eat them.
Run.
Right. But that's why I say that they're a good snack. Once you get into like the bars, how processed are they? What are they made of? Some of them, they just slap kind of whole grain on there, or like they advertise it to make it seem like it's healthy, but in actuality, it may not be very different than like a bag of chips or something like that. So I'd have to look into that specific bar you're talking about.
Yeah, let me know.
But I think snack bars in general are, I would be careful. Be careful. I'm not gonna say like don't eat them, but I would be careful. Get the ones that are lower. I mean, if you can find out what their glycemic index is, that would be great.
How would one?
You honestly, search for it. If you just look, like, I will Google things. Now, I'm normally Googling, like, oranges or, like, specific ingredients or, like, fruits or vegetables or, like, actual things that are natural. I've never actually looked up, like, a granola bar or something that's processed. I'm not sure if they have glycemic index for things that are, like, processed. But for every like fruit or vegetable or like natural food, you can find on the glycemic index. So I usually just Google it, and it'll tell you like, I think it's from 0 to 100, and like under 50 is good, and everything else high or something like that.
Gotcha. All right, so let me stop you, because I think we're falling into the glycemic index, the health nerd rabbit hole, and she will tell y'all every bit of detail that y'all need about this. That's why she's the health nerd. Hit her up if you got a question.